Good afternoon and welcome to Nominet's 2022 Annual General Meeting. It's now 2 o'clock and I declare the meeting open. I'm Andy Green, Nominet's Chair. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. I'm joined today by my board colleagues, Stephen Page, Sally Tillery, Ava Lindquist, Anne Taylor, Simon Blackler, Ashley LeBole, Phil Buckingham, and our CEO, Paul Fletcher. On behalf of Nominet, I'd like to thank the two directors who are leaving us today. Firstly, elected director Anne Taylor, whose term comes to an end at the conclusion of the meeting. And also we say thank you to Senior Independent Director Dr. Stephen Page, who also leaves us today. On behalf of the board, I would like to thank both of them for their service to Nominet over recent years, and my personal thanks for their contributions around the board table over the past year. I would also like to congratulate our newly elected non-executive director, Kieran McCarthy, following the vote that closed on the 30th of September. Kieran, welcome to the Nominet board. We're looking forward to working with you. With Stephen's departure, Patsy Wilkinson will join the board as an appointed director after today's formal business concludes. I'm sure we will benefit from Patsy's considerable experience in both the security sphere and in public service. We're also joined by Tom Reed from Cameron McKenna, and Madeleine Malinchuk from Grant Thornton will be with us shortly. She's just getting round the floods from the recent main leak that we've had here in Oxford. So for now, let's go through the running order for today's AGM. We'll start with our Company Secretary, Rory Kelly, who will formally open the voting for our resolutions. I will then take a moment to set out the progress that we've made over the past year on the programme of commitments that we set out to members at last year's AGM. Then Paul Fletcher will update us on operational matters and the year's financials before we open up the floor for questions. Some of you have already submitted questions, but if you've not, please do feel free to post any now. You can opt to ask your questions via live video. Click the Q&A tab on the platform and then you'll be able to select your preference between submitting a question in writing or doing it live. Once voting has taken place, I will then close the meeting. For now, over to Rory to outline the formal business of today.
Thank you, Chair. Today we have 3 ordinary resolutions. These are 1, that the annual report and financial statements of the company for the financial year ended 31st, 2022 be received. 2, that Grant Thornton UK LLP, Chartered Accountant and Statutory Auditor of Seacourt Tower, Botley, Oxford, OX2 0JJ, be reappointed as the auditors of the company to hold office from the conclusion of this meeting until the conclusion of the next general meeting of the company at which audited accounts are laid at a remuneration fixed by the directors. And 3, that Sally Tillery is reappointed as an appointed director of the company for a term of 3 years. As per usual, I'm giving notice in advance that a poll count is being called on each of the 3 company resolutions as set out in the notice of the AGM, so we can count the weighted vote of all proxies submitted by members. Voting has now opened and will remain open until 3:20 p.m. We will have a short 5-minute break after the Q&A session to allow members time to cast their vote. If you have already lodged a proxy with Civica, then your vote will stand unless your proxy is not actually present today. If you have already lodged a proxy vote and don't wish to make changes, do nothing. If you have lodged a proxy vote and wish to change it, or your proxy is not present in person, you can do so by clicking on the voting tab. Due to the complexity of our voting system, Civica require additional time to complete their work, and so we will publish the results on our website when we receive them from them later today. I'll now hand back over to the Chair.
Thank you, Rory. A lot's happened in the year that's passed since the last AGM. As always, there are highlights and lowlights, but I feel a real sense of change within Nominet. This time last year, we embarked upon a significant programme of commitments to reset our strategy, restore trust with members, and place purpose at the heart of the company. These things take time, but I hope I can speak for all of us when I say that significant progress has been made. This is set out for members in the annual report, but I would like to take a moment to highlight changes in 4 key areas. First, I'm pleased to report an uplift in public benefit activity over the year. In keeping with our commitments, spending increased to 4.8 million this year, funding important work for over 50 organisations dealing with major societal issues such as online safety, digital skills, mental health, and digital poverty. We're making our mark as a funder of innovative ways to tackle the problems young people face growing up in a digital world. Flagship projects such as our multi-year support for Safer Internet Day are underway, and more will follow. The UK Safer Internet Centre plays a vital role running the UK Safer Internet Day every year, which reaches more than 3 million young people, raising awareness of issues and providing vital advice. They also help those whose lives have been damaged by online abuse, including a revenge porn helpline that provides support for young people in distress. Under a broader programme of work in financial year 22, we backed the O1 Founders approach to coding, bringing talent into the industry from unexpected places via unorthodox methods. And we've already heard that it's changing people's lives, like the bus driver who retrained as a coder because it offered greater opportunities for his family. It's this ability to make positive change in people's lives with technology that drives our work. Our support enabled the Samaritans to develop an app for the very first time, helping widen the support that they can offer to the vulnerable. Our work also looks to the future, inspiring millions of primary school children who are learning about coding for the first time via the Microbit project, which has the same transformational potential as the BBC's introduction of computing into schools back when I was young in the 1980s. When you begin to hear the stories of those who are directly helped by our work, you'll understand why it strengthens our determination to do more. Let's hear now from some people we've supported.
Getting Oxfordshire Online is a partnership between 3 charities across the county, and a big part of what we do is taking donated devices, refurbishing them, and then passing them on to people that don't have one. Nominet have been a really fantastic partner for us. They've been a major funder of the programme, and they've enabled us to continue to scale things, having done an initial pilot with Oxford Community Foundation. Nominet are supporting us into the future, and we're realising how much more we can be doing and how much further we can take it. Initially it was in the pandemic, and so there was a really strong focus on schools and school kids who needed that device urgently at that time. We've been doing a lot of refugee work with Ukrainians coming as well. It's fantastic to be able to help get them set up.
My name is Anton Lidovik. I'm from Ukraine. We moved from central part of Ukraine to the west of the country because house near ours was destroyed. We were really frightened. We were settled in Oxford with a host family. I will be studying computer science with artificial intelligence. Our host family recommended us a charity called Getting Oxfordshire Online. I received MacBook Air. It's gonna make like enormous difference. Without personal computers like laptops, Ukrainian nationals will not be able to do any job-related tasks.
Some of our GU laptops have gone to young people who live in children's homes to enable them just to be a normal part of society. They need access to things like the laptops to be able to be a normal young person, and when they haven't got that, that cuts them off and that isolates them.
Last year, Middlesbrough Council submitted a bid for funding with Nominet, and Nominet funded the Risk and Resilience team to do some work around elevating the voice of the child, which influences digital policy for care experienced young people. So one of the main things that we wanted to do when we were successful with the Nominet funding is co-design policy. And the only way that we can really co-design policy is by asking our young people's views and opinions to influence change and develop the policy and develop that change from a fundamental level. It's no good that being from staff members and professionals. It needs to be from our young people who are care experienced themselves.
I was placed into care myself when I was a child, and through the Missing from Home service I found out about this opportunity. Young people face a lot of risks online, such as exploitation, abuse, bullying.
When they're going through trauma and I've experienced the same trauma, they're able to feel like they have somebody who can listen to them truly.
So the impact, it's getting to know about digital safety, about getting to know what to look for and what dangers to look for while on the internet, but also how to stay safe and make sure that it doesn't escalate into another situation.
The work that we are doing is helping people because it's allowing them to be able to access technology and online in an inclusive manner. It's not discriminating young people because they are in care, it's encouraging and empowering them.
That aspiration to be kind of one of the safest places in the UK for children to go up online, that's a huge aspiration to have, isn't it? One of the key components in that is making sure that our young person's voice is at the forefront of achieving that aim.
I must say, when I see those videos, it's work I'm really proud of, and I hope you as members feel the same way. We'll return a bit later to highlight one of the many projects that our members have chosen to support via the GiveHub initiative, another thing that was started this year. Let's move on then to the cyber business. Our customers for our DNS-based cyber services continue to tell us how valuable and effective our service is. Both the UK and Australian public services are now actively protected using DNS-based solutions, which has proven its mettle in the face of threats such as solar winds and the vaccine rollout. It's a significant achievement, particularly for a company our size. But the aim is to be profitable as well as effective. So I'm pleased to report the deficit has reduced by 1.8 million over the year. The nature of the business means that progress is unlikely to be linear, but this was a significant step in the right direction in financial year 22. The route to profitability is clear, but there are still real hurdles to overcome. So we'll keep you updated in our half-year report and then, of course, at the end of this year. Now, not everything went as planned this year, with the exit from Cyglass a really disappointing end to a costly chapter for Nominet. Against the backdrop of a tricky climate for early-stage investment, the planned sale did not materialise, and we elected to exit to avoid the burden of $600,000 monthly burn rate with no sale on the horizon. That work is now complete, but the impact on the financial year 22 financial reports is significant. The write-down in this year's accounts was over 6.5 million, turning a healthy operating profit into an overall loss for the company. But I would like to reassure members that the underlying health of the company remains strong. The commitment to freezing prices until 2024 remains, and our commitment to public benefit funding is unchanged. But it was really important to take action. The acquisition strategy is no longer in play, and we published a new risk appetite statement. Your board would not consider a similar opportunity today. I understand and share the frustration of members about the scale of this loss, but the company remains in good financial health with strong cash reserves, it was important to put the Siglass adventure behind us so that we can move forward to build a strong Nominet focused on its core business and purpose. Let me turn now to how remuneration has changed. We now measure success in different ways that reflect the importance of our work and the impact on our stakeholders, our customers, and making sure that we have made progress against the commitments we've made to our members. It marks a significant move away from the financially driven measures of the past. Company performance was therefore evaluated at 75%. As a result, for the first time since 2014, less than 100% bonus was awarded to our staff. This was obviously a shock to many of our people who had been used to receiving full bonuses. But the Remco, led by Eva Lindqvist, was quite clear that although there was solid performance overall, the business fell short of desired outcomes in a number of key areas. Please note that bonuses for staff were not affected by Siglass. They could not influence the situation at Siglass, and the closure of Siglass was a board decision outside of the annual plan. Executive directors' pay packages have been realigned and now benchmarked against a blend of both technology and member companies. In combination, the new approach is in keeping with our standing as a public benefit company, but one that wishes to attract and retain talent at a reasonable cost. You can read all about this in our first annual remuneration report within this year's annual report. These changes and our priorities moving forward have put us on a different path and ensure that the .uk registry is and will remain at the heart of what we do. Paul will talk more about registry performance shortly. I certainly don't stand here today claiming that this is job done, but progress has been made. Your board is acutely aware of the need for alignment with members, and Paul will set out the ways in which dialogue has increased over the year. As a board, we continue to aim to build trust with members by explaining our choices, and we commit to setting out any proposed strategic changes in advance for member scrutiny. But the time is right for the organisation to come out from the shadow of past differences and tackle the future with confidence. We can't let the past paralyse our future progress. We're looking forward to what we are working on as a board going forward. A key issue that we must begin a dialogue on with members is how we will modernise our articles. They are very difficult to read and open to interpretation. You will have seen in the July board report that we have started that journey. I strongly believe governance change must be carefully considered and well thought through. Most importantly, of course, we will need to build widespread consensus. Even to rewrite the articles to reflect clearly and unambiguously the way Nominet works today will require 75% of members voting in favour. Although previous boards have not surprisingly shied away from this as a result, we are determined to try to make progress. As well as updating the language, we will seek to gain consensus on changes to ensure our governance supports the role we play in the digital economy and how we best operate in the public interest. In addition to bringing the governance framework up to date, the board's agenda over the coming year will reflect Nominet's vital role in the digital economy and the need to invest widely in our services and technology. We'll be working with the executive team on creating a compelling future strategy for the .uk namespace. This remains front and centre in all our thinking. We will be ensuring that our cyber business has a compelling future path that serves the public benefit, meets the needs of our demanding customers, and does so profitably so that it is clearly in the interests of our members. We have a significant technical programme to oversee, led by our new CEO, who will join us later in 2022. This will ensure that our registry and cyber services remain first world-class and to the maximum extent possible are hardened to the increasing cyber security threat environment. Finally, through the Public Benefit Committee, with its 2 experienced external advisors, your board will work diligently with the executive team to ensure our spend on social impact produces the best possible outcomes for beneficiaries in our chosen areas. Our role as guardian of the .uk registry, running vital internet infrastructure, and our contribution to the nation's cyber defences place us in a unique position in the UK's digital economy. Expectations from all stakeholders remain high, and the increased scrutiny of our work by government and regulators in particular is here to stay. We're determined to rise to the challenge, set high standards, and make the strongest possible contribution. Let me hand over now to CEO Paul Fletcher to update you on Nominet's operational and financial performance. Paul, over to you.
Many thanks, Andy, and good afternoon, everybody. This is my first AGM, and I'd like to say thank you to everybody who's taken the time to join us today and for their interest in our organisation. It's one that I'm genuinely proud to serve. As the annual report shows, we're an organisation in transition. As Andy has underlined, we've reset from the previous path. Public benefit is now at the heart of everything that we do. But what do I mean when I say public benefit? Well, the bedrock is the job we do at the centre of the digital economy, not simply how we spend our surplus. I want everybody connected to us to feel the pride in the contribution that Nominet makes by delivering our core services, as well as in the difference that our charitable work makes. As the National Registry for .uk, we perform a vital function that supports millions of organisations and individuals. As members will know, as well as the registrants who choose a .uk each year, government domains also rely on the smooth running of our infrastructure. We've heard from customers how our PDNS work helps secure the important work on the COVID vaccine development and rollout. So it's vital that our service is resilient and reliable. I'm proud that we've maintained a strong track record with 100% DNS uptime last year. We continue to provide a strong service, but a renewed focus on our technology and security is required to ensure that we continue to deliver for all our stakeholders in the years to come. We're in the early stages of that work. The first phase of a programme to upgrade our infrastructure got underway. That is work that will develop over the coming years. The right technology leadership is key to our success, and we've appointed a new Chief Technology Officer, Oliver Tweedy, who joins us next month. His experience from the Bank of England, who of course know a thing or two about resilience and running critical national infrastructure, will increase our ability to embrace the challenges ahead. In terms of performance in FY22, the registry ended the year with 11.1 million UK domains under management, with 1.8 million new registrations and a renewal rate of 79%. I'm pleased that customer service levels remained excellent with a score of 85%. .uk remains the country's domain of choice, and we're working hard to ensure our service and policies evolve, not simply to keep pace, but set an industry standard in the years to come. As Andy mentioned, our protective DNS continues to secure public services in the UK and overseas, and I'm proud that our service now extends to the government's offices overseas. The service we deliver for UK and Australian governments is widely regarded, and the role of the DNS in keeping nations secure has been firmly cemented. The year has been marked by establishing closer links with members, and we will continue to work on developing those relationships. The UK Registry Advisory Council is helping us work through policy matters for .uk, not least advising on the recent changes where we now share in advance when expiring domains will become available. Members are able to direct public benefit funding to causes that are important to you. And I'm pleased that we've been able to support so many great initiatives via GiveHub. We gave over £400,000 last year to 16 organisations. This is open to all members and decided by members, so please take the opportunity to nominate. Since last year's AGM, the members' community was launched and is providing a place for members to talk to each other and to the Nominet team. My thanks to all of those already involved, giving up their time, working with us and having a say. I'd hope that over time we can encourage more members to participate, so the diverse range of our membership is reflected in all of our channels. With that in mind, I hope to see as many of you as possible at the forthcoming conference on November the 24th. We're bringing together our members, partners and wider stakeholders to discuss the challenges and opportunities facing our industry in 2023 and beyond. Expect conversations with experts from the worlds of tech, charity, politics and business. We've also responded to the desire for greater transparency, perhaps best expressed by the increased level and frequency of financial reporting. You'll receive a half-year report for this financial year next month, but for now, let me turn to the results for the last full financial year. I'm pleased to report on the financial results of Nominet for the 12 months ended 31st of March 2022. FY22 was the first year that we set out our numbers per business unit and follows a mid-year performance update prior to my arrival, which included the respective run rates for the cyber businesses. Total revenues were up to 55.1 million, and as you can see, this reflects growth in both our registry and cyber revenues. On the registry side, the uplift in domains driven by the COVID lockdowns, in combination with the positive renewal trends, led to a strong performance. Our cyber business revenues were uplifted by work on the public sector network and an expanded overseas contract. The operating surplus before public spend and Cyglass impairment was 8.1 million. In line with the board commitments made, our public benefit spend funded from the operating surplus for FY22 increased to 4.8 million. The write-down of Cyglass at 6.7 million, of course, had a significant impact on our bottom line, taking us into an overall net loss for the year. It's certainly not a position we wanted to be in. But it's hopefully reassuring that due to the underlying strength of the company, it has not affected the commitments made regarding public benefit or our pricing. So moving on to the P&L account in more detail. Revenue overall increased by 5.3 million, that's 10.5% to the 55.1 million I already mentioned. Our cost base and headcount also increased to deliver this growth. Average headcount has increased by 47 heads to 311 during the year, particularly driven by our project investment in the systems and infrastructure transformation programs. The employment market for the technology sector is highly competitive, and it's an ongoing challenge to retain and attract key technical talent. Below the main P&L, our statement of comprehensive income has benefited from continued gains in the investment portfolio, which generated income of 2.2 million. The level of the portfolio stood at £114 million at the year end, recovering after a COVID dip, but as you know, the market remains extremely volatile. As members will know, our plan is to reduce our reserves to roughly £50 million over time, not least to fund the £50 million public benefit commitment. Nonetheless, we continue to work closely with our professional investment advisors to achieve strong returns within an agreed risk appetite. New segmental analysis of business performance has been included for FY22. And in the registry, strong.uk performance contributed 1.6 million of registry revenue uplift, which equates to 4% growth. Overall registry surplus was slightly lower for FY22, reflecting investment in people and cost inflation. With ongoing investments to develop the registry operations, infrastructure and security, the registry business unit surplus is expected to reduce further in FY23. For the cyber PD&S business, we saw the notable full-year benefit of growing the UK and overseas government cyber contracts, both our protective DNS solutions and public service network contract, delivering cyber revenue uplift of 3.4 million to 12.7 million. The team hopes to secure an additional PD&S contract in the current year to progress to profitability in 2024. And for Cyglass, the Cyglass operational losses to the end of March 22 are reflected in these accounts. Post-year-end losses will flow into FY23 this year's accounts to reflect the position up to the business exit, which took place in June 22. The overall acquisition and funding cost of Siglass acquisition of roughly 18 million, including the post-year-end losses and exit costs, has been previously communicated to members, along with the lessons learned and the action taken in response. The FY22 accounts reflect the Siglass business intangible asset being written down to nil. So despite that setback, the closing net assets of the business remain steady at £105.9 million. That means we remain in a really strong position to move forward and invest in our future and keep our commitments. So to conclude on FY22, the audited annual report and financial statements have been consistently prepared under IFRS and have received a clean audit opinion. I therefore recommend them for approval. So let me turn briefly to the current financial year and future years. In keeping with our operating principles, we aim to generate an operating surplus before public benefit. At present, inflation is against us, and we are already experiencing a significant increase in our underlying costs. We expect this to continue for the foreseeable future, as the Bank of England forecasts inflation will reach over 13% in the final quarter of this year. Due to a combination of inflation and investments needed in the business, our operating surplus is expected to reduce in FY23. While aiming and expecting to generate operating profit in future years, Nominet will be reporting bottom line losses as we draw down from the reserves in line with our commitment to significantly uplift our public benefit spending. The cash funding for this will primarily be from further withdrawals from our investment portfolio, so we'll need to get used to the impact coming through the P&L. This is a managed approach in keeping with our commitment to use our reserves to invest in the business and deepen our public benefit contribution. I want to end by underlining how pleased I am to be here at Nominet, leading it through the next chapter of its development. It's hugely important to me that we have an organisation that's driven by its purpose, lives by strong values, and delivers for everybody who depends on us. Finally, I'd like to thank our members, partners, staff, and other stakeholders for their support of the organisation and for their considerable assistance as I've transitioned into my role. Thank you. Let me hand back to Andy for the Q&A.
Okay, can we just take a 2-minute break so people can post their written questions, please? Everybody knows how to do that. If you haven't done so, the instructions are up there on the slide now. You can, of course, ask live as well, so please indicate that once you go through to the question part, and then we'll take you into a virtual green room to make sure you can check your audio, etc. is working. So let's take this short break, and we'll be right back with you. Welcome back, everybody. We've now got over 30 minutes scheduled for questions. We'll get through as many questions as we can, and if we can't answer, we'll get back to you as we can on email. Elaine, where should we go first?
Members who'd like to speak live. So let's start with Dan. Can we come to you first? Dan Rogers. Dan, fire away.
Certainly. So, as I'm sure many members are aware, recently some of the articles of association were called into question onto their lawfulness. Frankly, I was disappointed with the response that we've seen from Nominet, as it did not seem to live up to the ideals of transparency and openness. For example, why did Nominet not publish their legal advice to back up their claims that they were lawful? Why did they not seem to engage? Why was the statement issued seemingly misleading based on the information that's been released by the member who raised the issue? How will Nominet handle these types of queries better in future? And how does the approach taken help build trust and the relationship with the members?
Look, I think it's a very difficult set of issues. I mean, as we said back in June when we met as a board and went through our memorandum of articles, they are very complex. They're pretty internally inconsistent, very opaque. And as a result, you can get different legal views on different elements, and it's very, very complex, very detailed points. The ones that are being raised are very detailed points. A lot of disagreement from different people about their lawfulness and other. There's nothing which was compelling enough personally for me to feel that we should not continue with the way we've been operating virtually since we were founded. So, the approach we're going to take is clear and open, which is that we're going to redo the memorandum, all of our constitutional documents, and bring them back to members. And as we know, we're going to need a 75% vote to get those through. That will obviously be a highly transparent process, and hopefully will build trust.
Okay, thanks, thanks, Dan. I think next up we've got Jim Davis ready to speak. Jim, can you fire away?
Hello, yes. My question is also about the legal problems with the articles. Andy has said that the question about whether Nominet is breaking the law over the issues of weighted voting and member subscriptions can't be decided as they're untested in court. He's also conceded that the opinion that was shared with us, but not published by Nominet, is on a narrow issue and doesn't cover all of the problems with the articles that we've raised. Now, we would say that the only way to resolve that is, as he says, is to test it in court and to ask the court for a declaration. Otherwise, to put it at its kindest, Nominet is in a situation where the chair accepts that at the very least it might be breaking the law. I'd like to ask each board member in turn whether they support going to court to ensure that Nominet is not breaking the law.
I do not support that. I support the revision of our articles to make them clear to everyone. I think there's no value in going to court. I think it's a waste of time. It's time we moved on and looked at the articles.
I'd like to ask each board member
that on this format. We'll come back to you on that, Jim, later in the meeting and see whether we can get everybody to give an answer. Leave me to see what's possible. Most people are not in the room.
I have a supplementary question. It came to light today that the board considered a number of complaints about use and abuse of the Nominet logo by Kieran McCarthy in his election mailings, and that the result of that was that the complaint has been passed to the member behaviour committee, but it wasn't published, nor was it announced within the time limit provided in the election rules. So it was sent to the people who complained after the polls had closed. Again, I'd like to ask each board member, was that what you wanted to do?
I don't think that's sensible, because I don't think that was a board decision to raise the complaint, was it? It was a...
There was an email sent today saying it was a board decision.
We had a discussion on the topic. I think we were pretty much at the end of the voting at that stage, come what may. You know, these were very late things that occurred. I'm confident personally that we run a fair process that's well understood by members, where the rules are set out. Jim, you know, and I think it's right that we leave it to members to run that, and the board seeks to interfere as little as possible in the member election process.
There's a 5-day limit for responding to complaints in the election process, and that wasn't adhered to.
I will have a look at that. I don't know that that's true, but if it is, I will come back to you on it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. I'm going to go to one of the pre-submitted questions now, if that's okay. This one is from Andrew Bennett, and Andrew's question is, why do you continue to have virtual AGMs only? Will the Nominet board commit to a hybrid meeting next year, please?
I'll discuss that with my board colleagues. I think personally that the virtual meeting allows many more members to attend and have equal access, but we'll look at it and come back to you, but it's something we'll have to discuss with the board.
Chair, next question is from Ben Rivetta. It's about domain policy. As far as Nominet's collusion policy goes, can you define what collusion means to Nominet and where it draws the line between members colluding and members using loopholes in the policy to essentially gain a competitive advantage? An example being a company which uses a universal list of domains being chased by multiple members on a hosted drop catching solution, with members compensated in percentages of profit from the sale of successful catches. Is this collusion by its very nature? Paul, maybe one for you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I think we've got a number of policies that cover this issue, particularly our acceptable use policy and also our connected persons policy. Sometimes it's quite hard to see this behaviour in the market, but whenever it's reported to us, we do investigate, and where evidence is provided, we then link the tags, and we make sure that any limits are set across the two tags. So we have policies in place. We investigate when issues occur, and if there's evidence, we take action.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Next question is from Cyprian, and Cyprian's question is, following repeated failures of CES around casting votes, calculating voting and AGM attendance, will Nominet replace CES with a more professional provider?
I think we said before we have a very complex voting system. It's really difficult. I think CES do a pretty good job. We'll look again, as we always do, after this AGM and see whether there is any case for changing supplier, but it's a lot of these issues are driven by the complexity of our voting arrangements rather than anything to do with our supplier.
Thank you. Next question is from Kieran Davies. Significant concerns were raised about the candidature of Kieran McCarthy in the election. These breaches, which include misuse of the Nominet logo, were signed off by the board last week. Does the board aspire to the same transparency as IFFOR, which Kieran misled members in his statement, where he is an executive director of a not-for-profit which has paid himself but appears to have done no work for a number of years? Will the board now terminate his contract for these breaches?
I think, you know, as far as I can see, as I said before, this is an issue for members. I think the information was there for members about I4. If people want to research it, I have no knowledge of I4. We will go through the normal process of making sure we don't have conflicts of interest on decisions at the board, as we always do with all our members. whether elected or appointed. And I don't see a role for the board engaging in this level of detail in a member election. I think it is for members to decide who to vote, and they have voted and decided.
Thank you. Next question is from Rob Taylor. Does the board stand by the Nominet statement issued on 29th September regarding the weighted voting thread as raised on the community? If so, is it possible to clarify if legal advice was obtained at the same time on the matters which specifically included processes regarding membership fees? Will a correction be issued? I would invite board members to reassure members by way of explaining how such a miscommunication came about and ensure it does not happen again. That's from Rob Taylor.
Well, I apologise for the miscommunication, and if anybody was misled, I particularly apologise. I take personal responsibility for that. Otherwise, I think I've answered the questions there. We're facing really difficult, detailed points of law embedded. You know, I repeat, you know, people are saying this goes back virtually to the time that Nominet was founded. I think we all know that Nominet has had a robust governance system, as we saw at the AGM. We've had robust debates. We have clear elections and clear voting, and I think, you know, the way forward here is to clarify our constitutional documents, do that work, and bring it back to the members.
Thank you. Next question is from Dan Rogers. What factors have contributed to an increased gender pay gap within Nominet?
That. I mean, the first thing that won't have helped is appointing a new CEO that's male. Is the first thing to say. Obviously, we operate in a market for technology people. Sadly, that's dominated by male candidates. 85% of the UK market for technology people is male, and half of our population here, the 300 people that we have, work in technical roles. So it's something we're very conscious of, something that we need to continue to work on. I'm delighted to say that we've got good gender balance in our board and in the executive team. We've got a 50-50 split in the executive team. But it's something that, like all organisations, and particularly those in technology, we need to continue to keep focused on.
Thank you. Next question is from Stuart Duncan Grove. Cyglass, on their website, claims to still be part of Nominet and trading on our expertise. What exactly is the trading situation of this company?
I have no idea, I'm afraid, but if it's true, we must correct that. So we must tell them to stop doing that. We have no connection with Nominet anymore, with Cyglass anymore, and they shouldn't be using the Nominet name. So we will look into that. Thank you for pointing that out.
Next question is from Andrew Bennett. Why have we not had a detailed and independent inquiry into losing at least £18 million worth of public benefit money?
Look, we're all dismayed at the outcome of a business decision that ran into very significant external factors and then a clear change of strategy that members wanted. In my view, all that an external inquiry would do would be to waste more public money, public benefit money, and I do not support an external inquiry. We're quite clear what happened. We know who was there. I don't understand what we think we would gain by it.
Thank you. Next question is from Owen Lighthowlers. Question is, what has Nominet done so far, and what is it planning to do to assist its members of staff through the cost of living crisis? Maybe one for Paul, maybe.
Yeah, I'll take that one. We're very acutely aware of the issues facing staff. We've got a staff briefing coming up later in October. It's the middle of our year. And we have a number of measures that we will be announcing to staff at that point to help them through that period.
Thank you. Might be staying with you, Paul. Question from Ben Rivetta. Can Nominet confirm whether the new domain release system will be reviewed shortly for technical issues such as random latency times and domain names not dropping at the exact time as published by Nominet?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So we've worked for 2 years to prepare for the change in this process. Obviously, it's a highly complicated matter. The UK Registry Advisory Council has been involved in setting out that new policy. The new policy's only been in play for a few weeks so far. We're watching the behaviour very closely and analysing the data, but so far we've got a relatively limited amount of data. The UK RAC will also review at 6 months point exactly how this has gone, make sure that if there are opportunities for course correction, we take those. So in summary, it's early days, but we're keeping an eye on all of the data and looking for feedback. And if you've got examples of where the system's not operating as you'd expect, then please continue to feed those back to the team. They're really, really valuable insights.
Okay, thank you. Question I think that both sort of Dan Rogers and Andrew Bennett have asked. Will Nominate review the current election arrangements so that spelling mistakes in candidate names and problems with plain text email voting doesn't happen again?
Sorry, there are always small issues like this, and we apologise.
Okay, then a question from Dan. Should weighted voting be proven unlawful? How will Nominate address this, and how will the votes taken at this AGM be corrected?
I think looking at the proxy votes that I am asked to put forward on behalf of members, I don't think it will make any difference one way or another what the voting arrangements were.
Okay, next question is from Angus Hanton. Andy has just accepted responsibility for a misleading statement that was put out, which could not have been an accident. Then what consequences does he suggest for doing that?
You all have the opportunity to vote me in and vote me out. I'm a director, I'm a human being, I occasionally make mistakes. I've apologised. That's for members to decide.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Cyprian. It says, virtual AGM meetings are limiting access, as it was proven earlier, where other board members could not answer questions. Are the other board members in attendance, and can we please see and hear from them?
Did we get anywhere with that?
I think the answer is yes. Can we bring up the other board members, Steve? Here we go. And I should also say Stephen Page is with us in the Oxford office.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk to this a bit and a couple other things, if I may. Broadly, I'm supportive of a hybrid AGM. I understand why people might like to meet in person. And I can also hope to see some of you on November 24th at the conference in person. There's clearly a lot of good work that's been going on at Nominet. I don't think anyone around this board table is saying that the work's done or that we're done. But clearly progress is being made. There are some legal issues which are obviously important and will be looked at, but it's not like it's new news. I think, Jim, we first spoke about this October 2020, and it was a fully formed idea then. So it's not like this is a new idea. And I think the timing of it personally could have been better, just in the run up to an AGM and a vote, but that's by the by. The board's committed to looking at it and making sure that the company's operating legally, of course. So I would just like to draw attention to the fact that we have obviously achieved a lot. And while it's totally valid to be critical of the organisation, and I should know quite well about that, it's good that people are asking questions. It's good that people are engaging with the organisation. It's good that turnout is up. But let's keep on working on improving Nominet. I think some people think that I've somehow sold out or gone rogue or, just cutting a cushy check here. That's certainly not the case. There are huge changes going on inside the organisation. I would just like to draw everyone's attention to the fact that these changes take time if you want that to happen in a fashion that doesn't affect the thing that you love. So clearly it'd be better for us to move slowly and carefully, especially when we're dealing with complex issues, than it would be to rush an agenda or something because it serves somebody's election campaign. That clearly isn't the way the organisation should be run. And everyone around this table is very committed to making sure that the organisation thrives in the future. I'm always available if anyone wants to talk to me. I'd much rather someone just booked in to have a chat with me than said that, I've lost my way or I've sold out. That's complete rubbish. So available anytime anyone would like to have a chat with me.
Okay, I'm sure people will take you up on that offer, Simon. They'll be forming an orderly queue. I think there was a question earlier, I think that Jim wanted to ask just about the board members and whether they wanted to take, Jim wanted to ask each board member in turn if they thought it'd be better served in court. Stephen, maybe you want to come in on that?
Thanks. I think Andy answered this very well. I fully support Andy's answer, which is that court actions and so on are a expensive and irritating distraction. I don't think they're the right way to solve things. Andy's laid out a path in which this very strong board with excellent member elected directors will work through a proposition and put it to the members, and that seems the right thing to do to me.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll move on unless anyone's got anything else.
Obviously, if any of my board members want to disagree with the course of action that I laid out, please do so now so that our colleagues, our member friends can see that there is a healthy debate on everything, but I'm not aware anybody's against the idea of us re-looking at the articles and other constitutional documents and coming back to members with something that's clear and understandable and trying to get members' support for that.
All right. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Question is from Leslie Bunder, and Leslie's question is, what is Nominet doing and plans to be more inclusive for BAME people, as currently it seems there is very little BAME representation either on the board or working at Nominet?
If I may, I would like to say this. I think both on the gender pay gap issue and on all issues of diversity and equality, you know, we've been busy as a board, but we have, I know in all the interviews that I've been involved with new people coming on, this is an issue that we feel very strongly about. So we're very happy to report back on it. I think it's a really important thing. We've made some progress on gender diversity, but I note the point about ethnic diversity as well. It's something I've dealt with a lot on other boards, and I'll make sure that we have some good board debates on that and have something more solid to say to you at the next AGM.
Thank you. Next question is from Ben Rivetta. Has Nominet got any plans to increase member engagement to ensure that a dire 15.1% vote turnout will never happen again? And does Nominet have any plans to punish or dissuade larger companies that don't vote, such as GoDaddy, who under the weighted voting system have quite a large vote even when capped to 3%?
I'm happy to take that. I mean, I think the problem that we face here is typical of many organisations when they're having their AGM. You know, the turnout for a PLC AGM is typically in the teens of percent. You know, we'd encourage all of our members to attend and to vote. I think it's really important that we get a cross-section of views from, you know, right across that community. So we always send out multiple reminders, reminding people to vote and encouraging people to vote. I don't think it's realistic to have a punishment for not voting, but I'd certainly welcome all of our members to participate in any vote and any member engagement activity that we're running.
Yeah, if I could say, there are two issues here I think we face that we need to sort of think about. One of which is, you know, you may have noticed that 85%. That doesn't mean 15% is dissatisfied. It means that 85% would recommend us to someone else. So it's a very, very high NPS score. It's a very, very high NPS score. I've never seen one as high in any organisation I work for. When you have very satisfied customers and you're basically supplying them with a service and they're getting what they want, you know, it's not very interesting to get engaged in the governance of the organisation. So I think, you know, we have to face that. I think we also have to reflect on the tweet from James, who was an ex-director of the company, about, you know, Nominet and the sense that we are not able to conduct our affairs in a manner that is fitting for people to engage with. And I think we all need to take some responsibility, and I certainly do, to try and work on a way to have important conversations in a manner which doesn't create this aura of conflict and tension around the organisation, because I think it is putting off some members from getting engaged. So I think both those two things are things we're going to have to think about as a board. It's our responsibility to try and create an environment where both those things can we certainly don't want to fix customer satisfaction because it's already fixed, but we want to find a way to get people who are satisfied and are good customers feeling it's worthwhile voting, and we want to try and create a more collaborative atmosphere between members and the company.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Dan. Will Nominet provide a full statement with legal opinion defending why they are currently refusing to verify the legality of the company articles, weighted voting, member fees, etc.? How can Nominet have the trust of members if it will not counter the compelling claims against them?
Well, we still haven't had advice on some of these points, so we can't publish it because we haven't had it. These are really complex legal points. I'm far from convinced that it helps trust between an organisation to start having tit-for-tat conversations about what one legal advisor says over what another legal advisor says over a document that's difficult to interpret. We're confident that the core argument, which suggests that voting is in some sense illegal, would just not stand up in court. But there's a lot of other stuff in there as well. I think the right way forward is for us to all work together to produce a set of governing documents we're all confident in and work and are in English we would all understand. I mean, it's really hard for a layman to understand them, and if we're going to be an organisation with trust, surely that's the point we've got to get to, where anybody can pick up and see that we are complying with our articles.
Thanks, Andy. I think that related to this, follow-up question from Jim, and apologies, Jim, I read out your previous question thinking you were Angus, but you're Jim. So Andy talked about the AGM resolutions, but you've not talked about the election results. What happens if the weighted voting is unlawful? And he says obviously he's got a personal interest in this one.
Well, it's a new one on me, Jim. I sort of picked up in one of your emails you were raising that. I haven't seen any advice from either side that has any relevance to the member elections. So if you've got concerns about the member elections, please let us know what those are, because they're certainly not covered by the points of law you've raised so far. So we'd really like to understand what they are, because obviously we're putting this effort into making sure everything's clear, transparent and understandable. If there are issues that you've got with the member elections, then please let us know.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few more questions to go here so far. Question from Steve Wright. What skills do you think are currently missing from your assessment of the board in whole?
Look, I think that Stephen has done a remarkable job in selecting a board with the appointed part of the board with people with skill, with good experience, and a real understanding of governance and ability to help us make sure we're managing the organisation properly. We obviously we don't seek appointed directors with industry experience, because effectively we expect that we're going to get that industry experience with the member elected directors. Now, obviously, we don't have a say on the member elected directors. We don't want to say on the member elected directors. So it's a slightly different process to normal. But I'm not sitting here at the moment with any big holes. One of the things I was concerned about was communications. One of the things Sally brings to us, as well as a very strong experience on the financial side and as chair of audit committee, is a very strong communications understanding, and I think that will be helpful to us as we seek to avoid making mistakes and to find a constructive way of engaging with members.
Okay, thank you. Jim's coming back on something you said earlier, Andy. Andy told me that he'd seen advice in an email yesterday. I think you just said you're waiting for advice. I think he's asking for some clarification on that. Might be advice versus written opinion.
Sorry, we have very clear view on the narrow issue about whether weighted voting is allowed for our AGM, right? So we're very clear on that. There were wider issues raised by Jim, and I think he just raised another one just now on the member elections, which I hadn't even realised was an issue. And so we've got so far advice on that one narrow issue, which we're very confident of. We're going forward and continuing to look at the other items to make sure we're comfortable about where we stand today. Having said that, the way forward here, as I keep repeating, is for us to get in and rewrite our constitutional documents so that they are unambiguously clear.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few more questions here. There might be ones for you, Paul.
Sure.
Dan Rogers has a question. Why hasn't there been a monthly CEO call in so long? None seem to be scheduled.
Yeah, thank you. So I was doing monthly CEO calls up to the summer. We took a short break for the summer. It's my intention to make myself available to members every month. Obviously, we've got an AGM today. We'll have a call later on in October. We've got the conference coming up in November. Dan, you'll remember I came and joined one of the UK RAP meetings, and I'd love to attend another one before the end of the year. It happens to be the one that you stepped into chair. So always keen to be available and always keen to have an active dialogue with members.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Ollie Hope. He's got two that are related, I think. Does Nominet have an opinion on when round 2 of the new GTLDs will happen? And will Nominet be looking to gain more back-end registry clients?
Yeah, sure. So obviously we're very active participants in ICANN, and we've been watching this situation regarding round 2 develop. It still isn't entirely clear when that will happen. We had an update from a board member, Phil Buckingham, at our last board meeting on this very topic. He was talking about this, having attended an ICANN meeting. And we always have staff representatives at ICANN meetings as well. I think any decision to pursue that needs to be taken on its merits at the time, based on the input cost and the likely benefit to the organisation. So at the moment, it's a close watching brief.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, I think, on behalf of Michael Toth, who has some trouble in joining the meeting. Why can't Nominet drop domain prices to £2.50 when you've got £100 million in the bank?
Okay, happy to take that one. I think that obviously pricing something, it's perhaps a slightly emotive subject for obvious reasons. The prices are fixed until 2024. The board took that decision after the EGM, and that's something that is committed to. In the run-up to the end of that period, the board and the executive will need to take a look at what's appropriate in terms of next stage pricing, taking all sorts of factors into consideration. So that's likely to take place in the autumn of next year. I think reducing prices is a significant challenge. So I wouldn't want any member to go away from today with the expectation of a big price cut. We're facing inflation of 10 to 12%. All of our cost base is going up. So we'll look at that in the autumn of next year, ahead of the commitment that prices will be held until 2024, and take all of the variables into account.
Okay, great. It's a related question from Ben Rivetta. It's got two parts. I think you've just answered the first part, but I'll read both and see. So, do Nominet have any plans to review and reduce the wholesale cost of domain names, especially in the light of the cost of living crisis? The second part of the question, does Nominet also have any plans for domain name promotions for registrars this year?
So I think I've already dealt with the first question. On the second part, there's nothing currently planned, but if we do look to do any marketing development activity or any promotions, we communicate those to all members through the usual channels, both in the members hub and via email. So it's obviously something we continue to keep an eye on. It's incumbent on us all, I think, to grow the market where we can. That's one of our responsibilities, running this important organisation. So no current plans, but they would be fairly and transparently communicated if there were.
Okay. Final question, I think, from Leslie Bunder. Are there any plans to promote Wales and Cymru more fully in 2023 and to establish a new local office in Wales for the local community there?
Yeah, again, I'm happy to take that one. I enjoyed meeting with representatives of the Welsh Government earlier in the year as part of my induction, and we talked about options to continue to grow and develop those two important suffixes. There's no plan to establish a local office in Wales at the moment, or anywhere else for that point of view.
Okay, thank you.
Much for your questions. If there are any we haven't been able to answer today, we'll respond an email or otherwise as needed. We're always available to hear your views and answer your questions. We talked about the regular monthly members' calls. There's one scheduled for the 17th of November. And I think, it was a really worthwhile conversation. I do hope people will feel we take the whole question about our constitutional documents seriously. We absolutely understand that it's time to make a change. That will be something we will do together. It's something that members have a 75% vote on. I think it will be excellent to get into that debate and flush out the issues. And hopefully it will help us improve trust. Now let's move on to the formal business of today's meeting. As Rory mentioned earlier, we have 3 ordinary resolutions and we have a quorum of members present. We're going to take a short 5-minute break now to allow members to cast their votes if they have not already done so. A short presentation will play while this is underway, and I'll formally close the meeting after voting has concluded.
The Nominet Members Give Hub gives a great opportunity for our members to apply to support a charity of their choice. A grant was recently awarded to the Catherine Lowe Settlement for their Tech Up Battersea project. Nominet went along to see the fantastic work that this project is doing in getting their elder community online.
So at Catherine Lowe, we've been going for nearly 100 years. We're all about building stronger communities, tackling poverty and reducing isolation. Well, it's been fantastic to get support from the Nominet Give Hub. It's supporting our elders' work, supporting them to lead digital lives, basically, to give them that independence. Digital is becoming increasingly important for us at the Catherine Lowe Settlement. And we were aware of it, and it was sort of in the background, but it was really when COVID struck that we really appreciated the significance of being online and being digital. Pretty much 95% of all of our members, and you're talking 500 or 600 people, were not online. They didn't have the devices, they didn't have the money to connect, and they certainly didn't have the skills and the know-how how to use them.
Well, the Elders team work with older people, particularly from the Battersea area, but also those that live in Wandsworth. During lockdown, we had to completely change the services that we provide because we couldn't really access the elders. They couldn't come directly to us in person. So we started doing telephone befriending, doorstep visits. We realised there was this massive need for them to learn how to use tech so that we could support them to connect with us, but also connect with their friends and families, the National Health Service.
We do a weekly, what we call Tech Together. It's a 2-hour session in the afternoons. We started off just before Christmas doing a basic smartphone skills course. What I've seen is that Older people really do want to know these things. They want to know how it works, and they want to know how to make the technology that they're carrying around with them useful for them. For some, it's just a confidence thing about just pressing anything on the phone. On the other side of that, there are people who are much more confident but are maybe falling foul to things like advertising and spam.
Since the lockdown, I've been coming here for about 4 months. I've never made a phone call on an iPhone. I've never done an email.
My nephew died 6 years ago. He was the one who used to help me with like smartphones and all this.
You're not born with technology like the young people.
I've always wanted to go somewhere where I can learn how to do. You used to be able to learn how to use a computer, didn't you? But you can't now. You don't have anywhere to go. And of course, I just started down here in December. This came up.
The course has really helped me to improve my confidence and also how to navigate around a phone. And I am also able to help the others because by discussing about our problems, I feel that's the only way to learn.
Once you find something like downloading a bus app, for example, or any kind of London transport app, and then they finally see how useful that can be for them, then the eyes are lit up and everyone's really happy and wants to know more.
She's fortunately terribly patient because she has to be. If you didn't have patience, you couldn't cope with 30 different people asking you 30 different questions all at the same time.
It helps. Yeah, it helps. I do, obviously I must know more now than I did.
I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for these sessions.
I'd just like to say a very big thank you to Rex and to Nominet for supporting us. It's been absolutely brilliant. It's all about partnerships. We can't do the work that we do here without the support from others, and it is making a massive difference to the older people here in Battersea. So yeah, just a very big thank you.
Nominet is absolutely committed to the member GiveHub scheme. I'd really encourage our members to get involved and apply to support a charity of your choice. You can find out much more information about this scheme on our website.
Thanks so much for rejoining us. As Paul said, it'd be great to get more examples like that one from the Gift Hub. In the Give Hub, we're so excited about that opportunity. There must be lots of local organisations near you who could do with our support. So please bring forward those ideas. I can now confirm the voting has now closed, so the formal business of the meeting is concluded. As explained earlier, we will announce the results as soon as possible after we receive them from Civica. I want to thank you all again for joining us today. It's been great to hear from you and great to have an opportunity to dialogue with you and answer your questions. Goodbye and thanks again.